And if we vote leave and take back control, I believe that this Thursday can be our country's Independence Day.
Who's going to be the next Prime Minister? Well, since my last video on this subject, more news has come out. Some MPs have dropped out and the rules have changed so that only candidates with 8 MPs backing them will be allowed to compete. So let's look in more detail about the candidates who already have that backing. I'll be looking at it from 2 angles: their chance of becoming Prime Minister and what they would do as Prime Minister.
Hi, I'm Matt Hancock and welcome to my app. It's a chance to find out what's going on, both in my role as MP for West Suffolk and as Culture Secretary. And most importantly, it's a chance for you to tell me what you think.
Matt Hancock. As a Remain voter with views very similar to Theresa May, I think Mr Hancock will struggle in this contest. He only has 13 MPs backing him, one of which includes Damien Green, another Remainer known for looking at porn on his work computer, hardly a reputable endorsement. Now, as Health Secretary, he is facing questions over his admittance that he has previously taken cannabis in the past, after Michael Gove admitted to cocaine use. Of course, this admittance by Michael Gove was a much naughtier Fields of Wheat moment that has become a hot topic of this contest.
They're ruling out the withdrawal agreement being reopened. What do you now do?
We don't. We listen to the House of Commons and we win the confidence vote.
But Brussels isn't listening to you.
Well, with this guy's Prime Minister, expect a lot of contradictions. For example, he supports fracking but introduced a bill to protect national parks. When questioned on Radio 4, he couldn't name a village that supported fracking. He hired a private jet as Energy Secretary and accepted money from a climate change denial organisation. Don't expect him to stay quiet either. He's previously retweeted a poem suggesting the Labour Party is full of queers, describing the mistake as an accident. And although he's against privatisation of the NHS, he has awarded 21 NHS contracts worth £127 million.
What is your position on no deal?
Well, no deal is not an option that's going to be available to the next Prime Minister, whoever they are, because Parliament has already made clear that it would stop no deal. Ahead of March, Parliament took this constitutionally unprecedented step of legislating against the desires of the government to stop no deal. And we've already heard that they've made clear that they would do that again.
With Brexit, he wants a soft border, but an independent trade policy. Halfway Hancock. He would set up an Irish Border Council, a bit like the council that overran the Northern Irish peace process, and then he would seek a time limit to the Irish backstop. So the UK would remain in a customs union and single market, either until the council could find a technological alternative or a possible end date was reached. However, the Irish government is unlikely to agree an end date.
Mr. Speaker, the House will have also seen the comments of Shamima Begum and that she's made in the media, and it will have to draw its own conclusions. Quite simply, if you back terror, there must be consequences.
Sajid Javid. With 17 MPs backing him, including the popular Scottish minister Ruth Davidson, Sajid might be a dark horse in this competition. He has strong views against anti-Semitism, which perfectly pits him against the Labour leader and wins Tory support. Of course, the elephant in the room with Sajid is that he is Muslim, but at the same time he panders to the right of the party, who aren't against all his policies, but aren't necessarily willing to put him up as leader simply because he is Muslim.
You asked me specifically about an amendment that's been tabled by Mr. Costa for today. You asked me, did you
Yes.
say what's wrong with that amendment?
Yeah.
Nothing.
So is the government supporting it now?
Yes.
Good. I'm delighted to hear that.
What do you mean now? When was the government not supporting it? When did you hear that?
Yesterday.
From who?
From the Prime Minister.
Did you?
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Sajid is a turning a blind eye kind of leader. Sightless Sajid. He is strongly against anti-Semitism, but has rejected a request by the Muslim Council of Britain for an independent inquiry into allegations of Islamophobia within the Conservative Party. He has been known for granting export licences to weapons for Saudi Arabia. He knows what's popular though, previously cutting beard duty, and when Theresa May as Home Secretary wanted Ofcom to interfere with TV to counter extremism, he was against it. On immigration, he has failed to unite the Conservative Party, lifting a cap on immigration for NHS doctors and nurses, but promising a crackdown on low-skilled migrants.
So what I will do is focus on the one Brexit deal that has already got through Parliament, and that was the withdrawal agreement with a change to the backstop. It's the only thing that's got through Parliament at the moment.
So you would renegotiate the backstop?
I would try to renegotiate the backstop. And what I would do in doing that is that I would focus on Ireland. I think Ireland is at the absolute key to this. It is, you could sort of say it's the tail that wags the dog on this. And we need to make sure that we can do more to build that goodwill with Ireland, to give them more confidence.
On Brexit, Sajid is a Remainer and a strong supporter of the single market. But he is against a softer form of Brexit, accepting the clear instruction to leave the EU. He would pay Ireland hundreds of millions of pounds to sort out the Irish debacle and have an alternative to the Irish backstop in place. Then try to pass the withdrawal agreement with the backstop changed or even removed because the alternative would already be in place. If a deal can't be reached, he is prepared to leave the EU without a deal.
Well, I feel pretty clear-sighted about this. I remain loyal to this Prime Minister. I want her to stay and make a success of Brexit. And I've recognised the inherent compromises we needed to make. I took this job at a time where a lot of people were very unhappy with the Chequers proposals. And I've worked really hard with all of our team, whether they're Leavers or Remainers, to try and get the right deal. But because we've got to the end game and the final terms being proposed are flawed in the two key respects that I've set out, I don't think it will be good for the long-term health of the country, economically or democratically, to accept this deal. And I think in good conscience I couldn't be the Brexit Secretary to take it across the line.
Dominic Raab. Raab has 24 MPs supporting him and he is a Leave voter. But in a contest that requires the backing of MPs, he's going to struggle to win their backing or unite the party when he is in favour of not respecting their views by proroguing Parliament. He is the best representative for the white British middle-class man, which the Tory membership mainly consists of. The question for the Tory party is, does it want a leader a bit like Corbyn, where the membership supports the candidate more than the parliamentary party, or would it prefer a more centrist type leader?
With the work capability assessment, Napier University and Heriot Watt just released evidence about how it causes almost universal permanent mental health damage. It kills people. I have friends who were institutionalized after going through it. It is an act of violence. Okay. And we are dying, and this election is life or death for us.
But the raw truth is, the money's got to come from somewhere, and it's very easy.
Let him respond.
It's very easy, and I can think of lots of things that I would like to avoid making difficult decisions on, and lots of areas like the health service or schools where I want to put even more money in. But unless you've got a strong economy, creating the revenue, it's just a childish wish list. We're trying to do our best to get the balance right between responsible public finances and investing in some of those crucial areas you discussed.
You choose to sacrifice tens of thousands of disabled people for the sake of that.
As a leader, Raab is anti-liberal, right-wing Raab, known for securing a review into positive discrimination and is against militant union bosses. He has proposed an amendment to the immigration bill to support all migrants given a sentence of a year or more. Raab is in favour of transferable paternity leave and against the equality bandwagon, as he puts it. He wants to cut red tape to boost job creation and has known to advertise a job for an intern that was unpaid, which a report criticised and said it was exploitative because you can't just avoid paying someone by calling them an intern. Anything on the right of politics, Raab seems to be in favour of.
And can you promise people watching now, I will not ask for an extension then?
I will not ask for an extension. Of course, if Parliament legislates, then we will be in a difficult position. But as the Institute for Government has set out today, it's very difficult for Parliament now to legislate against no deal or in favour of a further extension unless the executive, unless a resolute Prime Minister is willing to acquiesce in that, and I would not.
With Brexit, Raab would leave the EU by the 31st of October with or without a deal. So firstly, he would go to Brussels and offer them a final offer of the withdrawal agreement without the backstop, threatening them that he would leave the EU without a deal. Raab has previously proposed a review mechanism to end the backstop, but that has been rejected by the EU. If the EU do not budge on the backstop, or nothing can be agreed by the 31st of October, Raab would suspend Parliament to try to force the UK to leave the EU without a deal. Although Speaker John Bercow says he would not be able to do that.
I think a crisis is when you have adverse circumstances and you don't have a plan to deal with those challenges, and that's not the case. In fact, the opposite. We have been planning most of the year now for the challenges of winter. We had a very challenging winter last year as well. But are there highly challenging circumstances on the front line? Absolutely. And I think the thing I'd like to say is a very, very big thank you to all NHS staff, not just from me, but from the whole country, because I think we are incredibly proud of the efforts they're going to keep patients safe.
Jeremy Hunt. With 33 MPs supporting him, Hunt is the third most likely candidate to be Prime Minister, but as a Remain voter and known for being Health Secretary during the NHS crisis, I doubt he is popular with the public. As a leader, Hunt is, what's the word I'm looking for? Jeremy Hunt's leadership can be best described like a spy. For example, after the phone hacking scandal, as Culture Secretary, Hunt was in charge of the News Corp takeover of B Sky B. Hunt was found to have improper contact with News Corp. Then, at an event which Rupert Murdoch attended, he was known for hiding behind a tree to avoid media interviews.
I think that was the occasion where it was said you were hiding behind a tree to avoid being spotted by a Wall Street journalist. Is that correct or not?
No, what actually happened was that I went to a dinner which I think was hosted by the master of UCL. It wasn't a private dinner with James Murdoch. On my way to the dinner, I spotted a large group of media journalists, and I thought this is not the time to have an impromptu interview, so I moved to a different part of the quadrangle.
Hunt was in favour of reducing the abortion time limit from 24 weeks to 12 weeks. Most famously, Hunt is known for extending the working hours of junior doctors from 7 AM to 7 PM to 7 AM till 10 PM. This caused a number of strikes. He has described Saudi Arabia as an important military ally. So in other words, Hunt is a leader that goes with the broader wishes and aims of the government, even if it means going against the wants and needs of the people affected, making the NHS more efficient, making the Tory party look stronger, and saving money to invest in the economy.
My argument is, as someone who has been a negotiator all their life, I set up and ran my own business for 14 years. I've negotiated big deals in government, whether it's the junior doctors contract dispute, which was a very difficult one, the BBC licence fee, which was an incredibly short negotiation. I have that experience, and if we can get a deal, that is the only way we will avoid a general election.
On Brexit, Hunt would renegotiate the withdrawal agreement, stating that Angela Merkel has already said to him that she would. He wants to leave with a deal to avoid a general election and change the backstop to find an alternative based on technology. But if the only way to leave the EU was without a deal, he would.
You have said that we need a free trade deal with America, and the Americans are very keen on that, but what the American Farming Association is also very clear about is for that to work, we will have to accept some American standards that we don't in our food at the moment. Chlorine-washed chicken, beef created with hormones which some people think affect cancer and puberty and so on, all sorts of GMO products without necessarily being labelled, and that as part of a free trade deal, we will have to accept them. Are you absolutely clear that our environmental and food standards will not be loosened in any way as a result of leaving the EU and doing free trade deals with other countries, including America?
Yes.
Michael Gove. With 35 MPs supporting him, Gove is the second most likely next Tory leader and Prime Minister. Most recently, his campaign has been plagued with his admission of previous cocaine use. That might make it harder for him to sell his actual policies in future. He said he was in a strong position to receive support from the DUP. Look, he might have an A star for his speeches and policies, but nobody likes the teacher's pet.
5 schools are expected to join by April. Now, the academies in this trust all work collaboratively. They share training and the development of staff. They work together on curriculum design, and they use shared administrative and financial management services. And the schools are all seeing the benefits, with results rising and vast improvements being made.
As a leader, Gove is gullible, known for chasing advice given to him which might seem tempting and beneficial in the present, but later turns out to be a mistake. For example, in 2003, he praised Tony Blair for his handling of the crisis in Iraq. As Education Secretary, Gove was an academic in favour of examinations. That led into his role as Justice Secretary when he favoured the increases in books in prisons to reform inmates through literacy and numeracy. Of course, he is best known for following the terrible advice of running instead of his old friend Boris Johnson during the 2016 leadership contest, and then failing to win support in that contest, being betrayed by the media as a backstabber. As Environment Secretary, he got microbeads banned from cosmetic products. His leadership has been pretty textbook.
I would have a smart negotiating team led by myself and other politicians rather than officials, explaining to the European Union what needs to change in order to make sure that we honour the referendum result. We would have a full stop to the backstop. We would also have a clear approach to making sure that we had a Canada-style free trade agreement.
On Brexit, Gove would delay Brexit until 2020, if he had to, in order to avoid leaving the EU without a deal. Then, during that time, he would renegotiate the backstop and try to get a deal to pass through Parliament. After Brexit, he would scrap VAT to give a boost to the post-Brexit economy.
If we stand up for democracy, we will be speaking up for hundreds of millions of people around Europe who agree with us but who currently have no voice. And if we vote leave and take back control, I believe that this Thursday can be our country's Independence Day.
Boris Johnson, the most popular leader with 58 MPs supporting him, including the President of America. He is the most well-known of the candidates, but that might work against him if the party would prefer a fresh face, or if the other candidates get more attention from fighting against him. As leader, Boris can best be described as a boisterous flip-flop, a little bit too forthright for some. Johnson served 2 terms as London Mayor, in that time introducing new buses, hosting the Summer Olympics, and then went on to successfully front the Leave campaign. But it was that campaign and his subsequent actions that have proved that he can flip-flop too much, not partaking in the 2016 leadership contest, resigning from May's government when Chequers was announced, making comments about the burqa that some might find offensive, then launching a campaign telling people to back Theresa May.
The crucial thing is, what are the facts for the British public? What is really at stake?
Then backing the withdrawal agreement in the end, and then running as a potential leader, offering to leave the EU without a deal. Confused yet?
If there is one lesson from that referendum of 2016, it is that too many people feel left behind, that they're not able to take part fully in the opportunities and success of our country.
On Brexit, Boris Johnson said he would retain the £39 billion pledged to the EU until he gets a better deal, but says we will leave on the 31st of October with or without a deal. So who do you think is the best candidate? Join in the debate below and subscribe.